So today I'm joined by Frank Liguoro of Strata. They are a PM and cost consultancy, primarily focused in the residential space, but also doing stuff in the life science and healthcare space, which Frank was originally involved in, and some work in other sectors. This is a really honest conversation. And what I love about Frank is he's just a really down-to-earth character. And he talks about things like, don't expect to do everything overnight. You don't need to be an MD in the next 2 or 3 years. You can go through various stages of your career and build upon that. And when you're ready to take that next step, whether that be going to a business owner or simply going from, say, senior to associate, do it when it's right for you. This is just a really awesome, honest conversation about maybe the opposite of where the market is at the moment, which is telling everybody to go fast, promote. Frank's just a really honest guy about, but the reality is you don't need to do that overnight, and you can take steps to do that. And then he talks about how to just make a business a great place to be employed in. Again, I think you'll get a lot out of this one. I love my chat with Frank. Right, well, in this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Frank. The food. Let's start that again. Right, let's start that again. Jesus Christ.
I left it. That was funny. Next time, though, leave it. We're just going to go on.
We'll have the outcuts. I'm delighted to be joined by Frank Liguoro of Strata Consultancy. Welcome, Frank. My goodness, that was a hard start for me.
I think it was a great start. It was a nice icebreaker.
This is setting the standard for this one today.
I think so.
A bit of a laugh.
It is a Friday. We should be relaxed.
We should be sat with a pub in a pub with a beer. Really,
we could do that post with the beer afterwards.
Absolutely. So, about a year into the business now, Frank, in terms of Strata?
It's actually longer. So it's actually nearly up for 3.
Bloody hell.
I think the reason why it seems shorter is obviously it started life as Better Delivery.
Right.
And obviously recently, it's only been a few months that we rebranded to Strata and we sort of pivoted focus. So
okay, let's jump into that straight away then. Why?
Straight away.
Yeah, why the original name, and then why did you pivot?
So I suppose the original name was actually raised and crafted by someone else to do an MMC advisory business.
Okay.
And that's where Better Delivery, as it was known then, started. And it was to focus on the MMC market, strategic advisory around that, and all things to talk about delivery of it, factory revisions, factory interactions, all that type of thing. When I entered the business, I thought, well, MMC has a life, but I don't see MMC as its own ecosphere. I think of it like optimized construction. So, you use the right tools to deliver the right project. So I don't see MMC as a subsector. And I was like, well, what are we offering here? We are offering advice on construction. And sometimes it doesn't fit simply into the right boxes. We should broaden and do professional services, project management, QSing, employer's agent, and all those things. And probably at that point in time, we should have a name change to effectively put a line in the sand and show that we've pivoted to something else. So that is the reason why Strata feels probably very new, but actually is a little bit older than what it is.
With you. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't think it's 3 years. That's amazing. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you didn't originally set the business up. So was it Rob who originally set the
No,
business up?
it was a chap called Jamie Parr and then Paul Lynch, and they'd started it as a tandem of 2.
Okay.
I think the reality is we've had a revise and a new genesis. So I actually think Strata, you could say, was started between Paul Lynch, me, Rob Littlewood, Andrew Hawley, because actually it is a new business in a sense that we did a line in the sand and we pivoted everything, the way we focus, the way we talk, the way we engage with clients, even down to our accountants. We changed everything. Everything. So it is a new business out of old. But so Jamie Parr and Paul Lynch started it some time ago.
Right, okay.
And had good momentum.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, we'll maybe just touch on this because it's been a mentally evolving world. The whole MMC scene has been turned on its head. There's very few now that have survived in terms of the contracting side of the business.
Yeah.
Obviously, Reds 10 are flying an amazing flag, but there's a lot of gone by the wayside, or
Yeah.
there's been a lack of there's a lot of investors, LNG pulling out. A lot has changed, hasn't it, in that world?
I think the reason why you hear about it is it's high profile.
Yeah.
And actually what we're focusing on there is just what they call MMC category 1. So it's volumetric,
Okay.
which is probably the most visual term of MMC that we always think of. The reality is MMC is still around, bathroom pods. We use them every day.
Right.
Curtain walling, anything that's manufactured off-site and brought on is MMC. And hence, Paul, why I said I don't see it as its own subcategory.
With you. Okay.
I actually see it as a kit of parts to help deliver something in an optimal way. And actually, we're using, in the construction industry, a lot of MMC. I mean, I think if you take the definitions, if you have a steel-framed building, that is counted as MMC. So if you have steel columns and steel beams, so if I take most of the commercial buildings in the City of London, we could go, well, that's category 3 because it's a steel-framed construction.
Okay.
It has curtain walling. It's an MMC building. So I think the narrative on MMC has to change, that it's not an industry in itself. It's something that is part of and supports the wider construction industry. And I think the reason we hear a lot about it is obviously the volumetric side of it.
Yeah, and you're right, and So for what I said, I should know better than that. But you're absolutely right. I think that's MMC has been lumped very heavily to modular builders, volumetric modular builders.
That's it. And probably look, in everything that's emerging and things that are new, there will be high profile failures. There will be high profile successes. The reason why we don't think about it in traditional construction too much is you think of the longevity of how long we've had to get it right. So like laying a brick's been done for thousands of years. I'm sure in the very first laying of brick days, there would have been a few failures until they got it right.
So a shit show for a while until they sorted it out. Okay, cool. So how big's the business now in terms of headcount?
So including part-time staff, it's 9 people.
Right, okay.
So, we started life as 4 of us. So at 9, we've had a good trajectory. And we're growing. We'd like to get it bigger.
Good.
Yeah.
So what are the plans? Have you got any? Is it day by day, see how it goes, or have you guys got a vision as to where you want to be in say 3 years' time?
We do actually. We sort of have a 3 and a 5 year one. I take the 5 year one with a slight pinch of salt because you never know what's coming around the corner.
Yeah.
I think for us, when we look at the size of consultancy we'd like to be in the long term, I think we'd like to be 60 people, broadly about that sort of size. It's interesting. We saw if you get slightly larger, we might lose some of the things that we consider our core values and the way we operate. I don't want to say like family type business, but you have to put in a different set of procedures. And I think at this current time, we're not thinking along those lines. We'd like to remain quite nimble, quite engaging, and we'd like to know all our staff. So I think 60 is probably the size we'd like to get to. I'm hoping, in the next 3 years, we can get to around about 20 people is probably the size we want to be at. But, markets, clients, push and pulls, who knows?
And that's PM and cost?
PM and
so obviously cost, I presume you're cost heavy at the moment, I assume, as a business? Or?
Yeah, so we are, by background, we are QS heavy.
Yeah.
But yes, QS, PM. I would almost see a 50-50 split. I think actually the service line at one level is quite different for the younger guys, but as you progress, some of the older guys will pivot between PM and QS. So I think, if you look at a business like a bit of a pyramid, your assistants and project level will have definitely distinct roles.
Yeah.
Some of the more senior guys, we probably expect a bit of both and a bit of double handling.
Yeah,
is the honest answer.
And main sector focus?
Yeah, so we sort of focusing actually on three key areas. With sub sort of categories in that. So we predominantly do residential because obviously given our background, but we're doing work in hotel space now. Yeah. And the other one is healthcare, life sciences. So we're doing a bit in that space as well.
Interesting. But that's a interesting range, obviously.
It is. And I think,
hotels and residential, maybe there's similarities, but
yeah. Well, I think interestingly, so both Rob Littlewood and myself, before we did residential, were predominantly healthcare and life sciences. So
Yeah,
it's
I was recalling that.
So
I can remember distinctly probably speaking to you in your EC Harris days when you made that flip across, and it's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, we've sort of gone back to our roots and do a bit of that, and it's actually quite a nice variety. It's quite a nice variety.
Yeah, good,
Yeah.
good. And you found, is that within the private sector of health and science, or is
it is at the moment? I mean, speaking candidly, on the public side of stuff, it's frameworks and scale and the like. So we have to work up towards that, and we're looking at frameworks and the like. But in the private space, there's probably less barriers to entry. So we could just take our past experience and knowledge and get rolling with it, is the honest answer there. But yes, the view is to go into the public sector in that side as well.
Yeah. It could be argued it just makes sense, because if you fundamentally spread the risk, don't you? Because usually when one sector's up, another one's down.
Yeah.
Maybe people could have anticipated it, but we talked earlier before the camera started rolling about the issue around the residential sector and Gateway 2.
Yeah.
Getting through all the gateways all the way to Gateway 2, 3.
Yeah.
But probably nobody in the residential sector could have probably quite envisaged how much it was going to really dent the sector for a period of time.
I think probably the honest answer is no one realised what a bottleneck it would create to delivery. And look, we are seeing that ease, albeit I still think there are challenges lying ahead with that. It's an interesting one as well around client dynamics. So we've got loads of clients that are now going to only go, we're only going to build to this height.
Right, interesting.
And then the ones that would usually do the sort of mid-tier apartments now going, should we go really tall?
Right, interesting.
So we had a bit of a chuckle. Is the UK going to fall into a place now where we're only going to build really low buildings, or because of the gateways, go for really tall ones?
Right, interesting.
And knock out everything in between, because the ones in between won't have the density, but will have the time associated with it. But let's hope the Gateway 2 loosens up and they start to pass things through more quickly.
Fingers bloody crossed for everybody there.
But yes, speaking openly, that was some of the reason why we started to pivot to other things. Just because it was like, how long will this process take? When will it settle? And so forth. So we started to look for different places to go and hunt for work in, to be honest. And it was a natural one to go back into healthcare just because we'd done it for so long.
Yeah. And still a pretty robust sector going for.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting. So we have mechanical and electrical guys that obviously work with us, and they like that type of work. We're doing a theatre, and they find that way more exciting than looking at just the residential space. So it gives them a bit of variety as well. We did joke saying, give us some time and we'll try to get in the data centres for you, but we'll have to work on it just to give them a bit of variety around their work as well.
Nice, good.
Yeah.
So Frank, let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into the industry?
Yeah, I wish I had a really good answer for this, but it was almost I fell into it. Yeah. So I think when you're a kid, you're either good at maths or you're good at English. There's a few that are good at both. I was on that side that was good at maths, and at the time I think there was a thing called prospects where they used to send a few people into school and go, have you thought about what you want to be? And I think I selected all the boxes, and they went, you're going to be an accountant. And I was like, well, I'm not sure whether or not I'll fancy being an accountant. And they were like, well, if it's not being an accountant, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'd quite like to be outdoors for a bit as well. And they went, we've got just the job for you, quantity surveying. And then I went and had a trial with Gardner and Theobald and liked it. And that's how I ended up in the construction industry. So amazing. I wish I had probably a bit more of a structured answer, but it was by chance.
Right. Well, you know what? That's a brilliant story to hear, because actually the stories a lot of people really did fall into it, whereas at least somebody gave you the advice, identified this quantity surveyor. What the hell's that? It exists. A lot of people I've already had on this podcast talking about how they fell into it. A lot of them at the moment, because obviously my network's very QSPM orientated. We're going to try and spread it out. So anybody listening, if you're running an architectural practice or an engineering practice, I want you guys on as well. Anybody within the consultancy space in the built environment. But a lot of them have been probably QSs initially. And a lot of them really did fall into it to the point that just suddenly found themselves as a QS. And it's like, what do you do for a living? It's like, so it's quite interesting. And that's what we need more of in school, because certainly when I went through the process, similar kind of thing, I'm probably older than you, I think, Frank, but there was no mention of construction. So it's great that almost, somebody there found you and suggested.
That was it. And actually, that wasn't actually from the education place. That was almost like a tie-on.
Right.
That was, I think, don't hold me to this, viewers. It was almost like a private entity that was helping schools
with you. Okay.
make suggestions for career paths with people.
Brilliant.
And they came up with it. But you're right. We don't sing enough about the benefits of getting into construction within schools. And, it seems to be off the radar when kids are coming through, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff.
So you started with G&T.
I did start with Gardner and Theobald. Yeah.
Good business. Very. They're very good at what they do, aren't they? They've very high standards from a QS perspective in terms of what they do. Quite a demanding environment, but
yeah. No, at the time, very good business. Very good business. Very good training regimes, and I enjoyed my time there thoroughly. To be fair,
good.
And they're still a great company as we sit here today. To be fair to them.
Yeah. And then what from there? So EC Harris?
Or
somewhere in between? I can't remember.
I did a few actually.
Right.
So I went from Gardner and Theobald to a place called Potterapa.
Yeah.
Did a bit of time there and met some great people. On from there, I went to Turner and Townsend in the healthcare team. With a chap called Steve Woodward.
Yeah.
And that was good. And then EC Harris.
Yeah.
And then on from EC Harris, I went to Cast Consultancy, obviously, as those guys left.
Yeah.
So I don't know, did I leave EC Harris Arcadis or did they leave me? I don't know. I just went with the same group and got some good learning from those guys.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So, and then you were at Cast for how long?
I was at Cast for 7 years.
Okay.
So from actually when they started up till the end of 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you ever equity within Cast?
No, I was only I was a director level, but I wasn't an owner of Cast. No, I went with them with the first sort of 11 people they had, and we went out of EC Harris, and effectively went on that journey with the owners there. So yeah.
So you're a pretty intrinsic part of that growth then, though, because obviously they got up to 100 people, I think, did they? I guess while you were there.
Yeah, they did well, and I like to think that I was a part of their journey to get to that size. Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So. What made you leave? What made you?
It's an interesting one. So I think there is no one specific thing, but I think in your career you're going to want different wants and desires at different points, and I think I got some great learning in how to run groups at Cast. I got some great technical learning, and it came to the point where I feel like I was at a crossroads where I wanted to do something myself, and I wanted to go on a journey to see whether or not I could evolve something and grow something and thrive on running a business. And I think it was at that point where I decided, this is probably the time for me to do it. It's not to say that I probably wouldn't have got there with Cast, but I think at that point it was the time when I wanted to do it and it was time to try something new.
Yeah.
I think that's my main thing. I'd got to that point where I think technically I was proficient. Managing relationships, I was proficient, and probably the thing that I wanted to learn next was how do you run a business? Warts and all, good, bad, and indifferent. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And also, I think I wanted to create a place where, culturally, it's something that I crafted and my colleagues, and something that how we want to run a business. And so that was the time to do it. Yeah,
cool. And so what? Not only from Cast, but obviously before that, you work with some great companies, some of the biggest names in the industry, very much the biggest names in the industry. Now with Strata, combining all of that stuff, what are you going to do differently, or what maybe good parts are you going to take from everything you've learned? What may be things you think, I'm not doing that bit.
No, true.
What's the strategy for Strata?
So I think interestingly, people always talk about different. And actually, when the plethora of places I've been to say that we're going to be uniquely different, I think is a stretch too far. We are a PMQS businesses. People know what the services are.
Absolutely.
I think culturally, I like some of the things that I've seen in other places, and we will adopt that and have not dissimilar things. So I think for me, we spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
You probably spend more time at work and the people you work with than you do with your family and friends. So to have an environment where we can have a bit of fun, grow together, learn together, and explore things together is something that I like. And I think, hence why the size, I always like to have one ear to the ground so I'm still relevant and knowing what's happening, and one eye to see what we could do next. And I think they're the sorts of things that I want to embed in Strata. I'd like people, when they work with us, to want to work with us and to have an environment where we're all pushing in one direction and, having a bit of fun whilst working as well.
So what are you doing? I'm trying with this with this podcast. I'm trying to really let's get under the skin, because you could argue that probably any consultancy would say that so those things you just said, every consultancy would probably say they're going to do those things. What do you think you're going to do differently at Strata to make sure that that's a reality compared to maybe some of the good or bad practices maybe you've seen in previous employers?
Fair enough. So I think, look, at this current stage, we're probably more malleable than some of the more mature consultants. And I think one of the things that, a lot of consultants do is a top-down effect.
Right.
You have a group of people that want to go somewhere, want to do something, want to have a vision, and then that trickles down. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but this is where we want to go, this is what we want to do, this is our objectives. Trickle it down for us to get there. I think for me, we'll have a bit more of a 360 feedback. Like, what do you guys want to do? What should we do together? And I think that's the bit on growing a business. And I think that's the thing that we need to do, is get more feedback about what do people entering the market want. Yeah. So in terms of consultancy with our, colleagues, you have to sort of go, what we expect, what do you expect, and try to get a better balance of that. And you know what? Sometimes they'll want things that we won't necessarily agree with, and vice versa, but trying to find a happy medium to grow together, I think, is probably what we're going to try to do. So I think being open and listening to where people want to go and what they want to do, and taking that on board and trying to act upon that, is the honest answer, Paul.
No, and that's a great answer, because I think that's what a lot of people don't feel they have. They don't feel they've got equity in the business. They don't feel their voice is heard, do they?
That's it. And I also think, funny enough, we talk about equity and ownership. I think one of the things I would say to aspiring people is, we always think of the benefits of owning a business. So you go, you get to, it's your pace, it's your agenda, and remuneration, as the business does well, it's your business, you become remunerated. No one ever talks about the tough stuff.
No, of course.
So what I learned in the few years of running my own business is I've learned that I've had to become an accountant, not literally, a lawyer, a HR person, a business development manager, all these things that you never see. So actually, my working day is always in various aspects, and there are a load more things to wanting and owning a business. And, maybe the way to look at a journey is looking what you get at each stage, as it were. And, going back to the businesses we had, I can think of the stages that I went through and what I got from it. And what I would say to aspiring people in the construction, learn your technical aspect first, and be happy with that you're learning and you're growing, because, I say it tongue in cheek, you can't be the general unless you've been the soldier, because unless you know what's happening, how can you tell others or advise others what to do on it? Get that technical aspect. Then, your second part of your career, learn how to manage people. It has its own challenges and rewards that are different to technical delivery, and you'll have to expand your own sort of repertoire and the way you do things. And then finally, when why I left Cast, you get to the point with, is it now time to run a business, and be ready for the good, the bad, and the indifferent when you get there.
Yeah,
is probably the thing I'd say to people.
Absolutely love all that. I think we've got to be really careful, haven't we, in the industry at the moment, about people just are on this massive drive to want to be the next level.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking to I won't name obviously the consultants, but someone working within a large consultancy, and they were saying, to be honest, we've got people who are directors in our business who've actually never actually ran their own project from cradle to grave, because they've been kind of fast forwarded so quickly through the process, because maybe they've had other skills that appeal to be, what we're after from a management perspective, but actually just they don't have the basic technical skills to actually run a project. So these are people advising, and they've never actually ran a project themselves from cradle to grave. And it's like, wow, how somebody got to a director in a business and never actually fully ran their own projects.
Yeah, I think, the tough one on it is, I suppose, expectations. So, is we place a lot in consultancy businesses on titles. And actually sometimes probably, we have to take a step back and go, what should that title mean? What do we expect? What are our expectations of individuals, both for a business perspective, but also for them? So when they leave you and do other things, they're ready to go on that journey as well. And I think there's probably a bit of nurturing that we need to put into the industries and markets to go, guys, we know you want to be a director, but these are the steps that you need to go on before you get there. And look, some people will do it very quick, some will be very capable,
Absolutely.
and others will go at a different pace. And there's no right or wrong answer.
No.
And I think that's probably what we have to instill in people. And funny, and I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I would pick people to work with over companies.
Yeah.
So a company gives a framework to work within, and like we talked about Garden Field, great framework to work within. But also look about the individuals that you're working for. What will you get from them? What will you learn from them? What will your journey be like with them? Because within every organisation, there is good, bad, and indifferent. And I think, look at what's around you and what you're getting from that experience is what I would say to people. Brilliant.
And appreciate when at some point you're working with an amazing person who can really mentor you, and don't be maybe so impatient sometimes to try and move on quickly. I mean, a lot of people will listen to me and go, he's a recruiter, surely he should be absolutely encouraging that, but absolutely not. Sometimes it's about the right time to move, and sometimes if you're in a period where you are learning and developing, then probably sit tight. When you feel you've hit a glass ceiling, and maybe that's what you had in Castaway, is like, look, I've done everything here now, I need that next challenge, and that means moving
exactly
to achieve that.
Exactly. And I think I've done it myself. We have to be open. There are commercial pressures of life. People will be having families and at different points in their life, and there'll be commercial pressures to move. I've done it, so I can't criticize anyone for doing it. But I would say a commercial pressure is one thing. Take a step back though and go, if that's the only thing, maybe a discussion with the business you're in is better than leaving it. Because actually, what I've learned from my experience is you're better to be with the right people and go on a journey. The commercial side of it will come. It never seems to come when you're young quick enough, but it will come. It will come if you go on that journey. And actually, if you learn all the things, you can start your own business as well at a point in time, or join another business. And, it balances out. It balances out.
To the extent that I would say, you see some people who really do just chase the money constantly, and some of them just end up getting stuck at that kind of senior QS level because they've never built up the credibility or the skills to actually push beyond that. And it's a real shame because suddenly they find themselves as a very, very well paid, say, senior QS, but actually they're almost in what an old client of mine once referred to lovingly as a fur-line rut, where they can't move out because their expenses dictate that they need to maintain this £80,000, say, for argument's sake, but no one's going to pay them that anywhere else. Senior QS, and so they're just stuck there.
And the balance of that is, it is hard nowadays. Let's be under no illusion. The cost of living is bananas. So I get why people do it. But I think when you're on that journey, pause and think, do I really need it? And evaluate the other things that is happening in that business that may be of a longer term benefit.
Absolutely. So 3 years in, and you alluded to, we just touched on it, we went on to a different thing. It's fucking hard work, and being a business owner, because you have got so many things to do in the business, as well as concentrate on still delivering fees yourself, still being part of the utilisation in terms of fee generation. But there's everything else to do. What have you learned in those 3 years? The good, the bad. What have you messed up on? What have you done brilliantly? What have you? What would you some of the lessons you say you'd learn?
I think the funniest thing I learned is the things that you think are easy in work are the harder things,
right?
And the things that you expect to be hard, and I'll give examples of this, are actually easier. So, if you go, I don't know, something that you think is really hard. Can we have a stage 4 cost plan on a very large building within 2 weeks? That's really hard.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to work early to nights, and the whole team's going to be on it, and we're going to have to coordinate it and all that. But actually, when you're seasoned, that's bread and butter. It'll be more something like, what does our brand look like? Do you know how much time we've spent just looking at documents? You'll be like, does this document reflect us? And you go to bed dreaming about font type and then and almost how you're articulating something. I remember we were doing like bid documents, and I'd like it one day, and then I'd go home at night and I'd lose sleep about it because I don't like the tone of the wording, but it's gone out. We need to get on top of that.
Yeah.
And that would have been something that I would have thought would have been quite easy. But we struggle to sort of feel comfortable with things and get consensus on it. So they're the sorts of things that I found quite amusing. And also having a plethora of documents, getting your HR documents in place and, employees guide and all these types of things that when you go to a company you take for granted because, you click on their central drive and there's one there that you have.
Yeah.
But when you click on your central drive and there's nothing and you have to craft it all, you realise actually how long that takes and how much thought you have into getting it right. So so I think for me, that was one of the things that I find interesting, that the things that we thought would be easy were hard.
Interesting.
Things that we've mucked up on. Let me think. So things that we mucked up on. I guess just the complexity of having to balance all the things in a day. I think me and Andrew, when we both left Cast and went into Better Delivery, we just hadn't anticipated the amount of time everything would take. And I think some things we ignored to the detriment. We were like, oh, we'll worry about that tomorrow. You don't need a letterhead, we'll get around to that. And then people will criticise about that. Or filing structure, actually, that was the best one, a filing structure. We're like, let's not worry about filing structures early on. That'll be something that we'll do when we're going to try to become ISO accredited or whatever it is. We won't worry about it. And then we started doing work, and in 1 month, I can't find the valuation. And I was like, where have you put it? What folder we put it in? We're like, we need a filing structure. So it's them sort of things where I think, that we probably underestimated and got wrong to start with.
Yeah.
I think things like that.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Is the challenge. So what are you guys? We may as well jump into actually kind of vaguely touching on it. What are you guys using from a tech perspective and all that kind of stuff to manage the business day to day?
So to be fair, we have an external tech company called SRD that helps us do all our tech stuff. So that's probably the predominant stuff that we use, and we use Microsoft platforms. I think the one bit of tech that I would say that I like that we've got is Creo as a measurement piece of software. Right. But, I think the guys will tell you if you ever am on, like when we were at Cast at the time, and I was part of that, helped them evolve that measurement tool, and it's very good. And we use Creo at Strata. I think
so that's what you did use
smart.
Cast as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I would say that Cast actually helped Creo evolve that tool.
Right, okay.
And I say Cast, not me, because there was a lot of people in Cast leading on that, and I think actually they supported Creo to develop a very good tool.
Let's get geeky on that then. So why? Because obviously, I would say Costex is probably chewing up the QS consultancy world from the measurement perspective. Why Creo?
I think Costex is just because we're familiar with it. And one thing I would say in construction, how adverse to change are we? We literally like the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Costex, to be fair, and they will probably still have the market share for many years to come. I think Creo is the user interface. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to drag into Excel.
Okay.
And it almost, I don't want to say it almost has like a gaming feel to it. Like, and look, if I can use it, no. So I base everything. If I can use it, then everyone else can. And I think that's what you find. And they're constantly evolving. Like they've got single point click, and it will measure the room. And we've seen that evolve to, it didn't have great success, but actually now it's very useful and those types of things. So they're an inquisitive company and they're learning and growing. And I think that is a good bit of software and one to watch.
Really interesting that, because I think that happens quite regularly when one software kind of dominates the market. Yeah. They can potentially get lazy in terms of innovating. We're potentially looking at it with our current CRM we use, and I think the company we're currently using, we just don't feel are evolving. Whereas we're looking at some others who are really evolving. We're looking at one at the moment, which is it's kind of built as an AI first CRM. So it's not a CRM and they're trying to bolt AI onto the top of it. It's like this is built ground up as an AI. Go confuse my words here. AI CRM. And I think likewise, I say with some legacy pieces of software that they don't try and evolve because they've got the market share.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's an interesting thing about business structure, and it can come back to consultancy. And actually, one of the reasons why I think Gardner Theobald was very successful. So, if you take a large organisation, it has procedures and policies that are reflective of its maturity.
Yeah.
So, and they will dictate how things are meant to be. When you're trying to evolve something like tech, you almost need a group of people that are getting constant feedback, and they're going to, by their very nature, they're going to go against what they're told to do, because how do you find something new unless you trial and error and do something outside of the box? So I think in tech companies, it's better that they run small and nimble, and as they grow, they need to be able to have corporate governance above them, but still allow that flexibility in like little working centres to be malleable, to come up with the next ideas. And probably actually one of the reasons why Gardner Theobald was so successful was it was a large company as an LLP, but kept, partner-led teams that were giving it sort of malleability, ability to deliver in isolation. And I think tech companies, maybe cost decks have gone too rigid, and maybe they might need to buy a few companies that have still got that malleable, let's go and talk to a QS. What do you not like about it? What do you like about it? And literally hear them. And don't ask people like me, like if Costex came and went, Frank, what do you think about the measurement? I wouldn't be able to give him feedback compared to the assistant who's measuring all day on it. He might just say, you know what, where you're placing the buttons on the screen, it takes me too long to put my cursor on it, and bring it back and get that sort of feedback, a bit more malleable.
100%, rather than getting that feedback and just try and say, yeah, and almost kind of just bulldoze and go, no, you're just using it wrong. It's like, no, listen. It's like one of the great, coming back to big tech companies, I think that's what, Google have Google X, and that's like, go and just fuck around with as creative a thing as you can. In fact, try and put us out of business.
Yeah.
And that's a brilliant attitude. It's like, try and disrupt us, try and disrupt our business model and find other ways of working. That's, I think, where they've grown some of their biggest now different products that exist out there because they've done that.
I mean, one of the things I would say about growth in any business, and consultancy as well, always feel slightly scared. If you're slightly scared and you're not feeling comfortable, you are learning, you are evolving. If you're feeling like things are a routine and you're doing it like a reaction, you're static. Don't ever get into the static space.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So, how soon do you think you want to get to 60 people? I appreciate the market is it's a bit like a roller coaster at the moment, but what are your guys' plans to get there, and how do you think you're gonna get there?
I think the honest answer is it's going to be client led to start with. So our client base is growing, and we will. And how you grow a business, I think most consultancy startups will do the same thing. You go back to people who you know.
Yeah.
So you have a set of trusted people, because when you're first growing, you have to rely on people that you know, because you can have a certainty of outcome. And I think also, you have to have an honest answer about what does their package look like and their growth look like, because the early days with any emerging company is people are going to put in the hard yards at that very early point.
Yeah, sure.
And, trusted people. We're then going to go out to people that's like word of mouth. Someone will tell me, well, I've heard a guy or a girl over here, they're very good, I can vouch for them. Maybe, not happy for whatever reason, you might fit the bill for taking them on. We'll go to them. And then it's getting good recruiters that you can trust that does that vetting for you.
Yeah.
So I think that was a long answer for a very short question. I think the key is having the pipeline in place and the patronage of clients. So we like to be a trusted advisor, so clients know what they're getting is good, and we build relationships with that. And then we build a team that will help us grow into that. Now, as a business owner, I'd like to do that as quick as possible, be steady state. But I think we're probably, a few years away from growing that, because I think the initial bit has to be controlled and steady. And also, we're learning as well. Like, we've talked about what does our colleagues and what do people we recruit, what's their journey look like? And we've been putting thought to that as well, knowing that the beginning bit is where the hard work is, and not everyone wants to be owner. But how do we, look to allow them to have benefits of a growing business as well, both financial and learning? We have to be open with that. And then what does the next layer of people look like, and then so forth and so forth. So yeah. So I think a measured growth. But don't hold me to that, just in case things change.
But I'm sure you've seen, Frank, you worked with a lot of these businesses, or some of your major competitors. Invariably, some of the challenge that happens is at 9 people where you are now. It's probably really easy to keep those 9 people happy because you're all in the fight together. You work in. It feels a bit scrappy at times, feels like a startup. You then get up to 60 people, and I'm sure you've seen from some of your past experiences with places you've worked, then suddenly it becomes much more difficult to keep that many people happy. Certainly you find the lobbies when they get to kind of the 100 mark, it becomes very difficult to keep everybody happy and keep everybody on the bus, feeling loved, feeling like they're part of the future of that business.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 things. I think there's 2 things there. I think when you're growing, it's knowing when you have to rely on others. So you're right. 9 people, myself, I can literally have coffee with everyone. We can have lunch, dinner, and we can talk about things. As we get towards the 60 that we say, you have to have a second tier below you or a group of colleagues that you can rely upon. And look, that's no different to other things. I mean, not putting names, but you go, one army wasn't very successful because it's very top down, but another army is very successful because they allow people to have strategic decisions in the battlefield, that they make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And if we take that and put it in the construction industry, have your lieutenants that you trust, that share your values and vision, and allow them to manage their team, and so forth and so forth. So then it wouldn't necessarily needing me to touch base with those other people. I just need to touch base with my immediate group, understand that they share a same goal and vision as me, and they disseminate it down. What I would say for larger companies is, look, there are pros and cons to both. And actually, when you're a larger company, the type of person in that will be slightly different to the type of person we might be looking for, and there's no right answer. So if I take a large company, and I worked at Turner & Townsend, brilliant. The journey you can have on in Turner & Townsend is you might be able to get international experience. You might run a profit center that is very large and very wide and has many different facets to it, but it's structured. We might want someone that's malleable, and we might go, we need you to be a PM and a QS and manage them people. And it's a very different skill set. So again, I guess for individuals, aligning aspirations of the individual with the companies that they're going into. And look, there's going to be a point in time where there'll be people at Strata that'll go, Frank, this is not for us anymore. And I'll be like, I get that. And, I'm hoping at that point, and I have now, the maturity to go, I wish you well on your journey. What do you need from me? Look, if you need a hand on something, or you need mentoring or whatever it may be, pick up the phone, because our paths are diverging. It's not because it's a breakup. It's just it's time for you to do different things or me to do different things. And I think it's being grown up to know that at a point in time.
I'll totally agree with that. Ultimately, sometimes an individual might outgrow a business, vice versa. A business might outgrow an individual in terms of what they're comfortable with and what they want at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And you've got to be respectful and say no hard feelings. There's times when maybe you make a wrong hire, it doesn't work out, they're not culturally aligned, and it's not a good parting. But as long as on the whole, you're all grown ups, and you go, look, I get it. The business, I get the businesses. We're not 5 people anymore. We're now 60 people.
Yeah,
there's different challenges. Maybe your views and why you were very valuable to us when we were 5 people. We're a different business now, and I get it. And just be grown up and say, yeah, I get maybe why you don't feel as comfortable in this business anymore.
Exactly.
And no hard feelings.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, in my own journey, of all the businesses that I've been in, I couldn't say there was a bad one. I've liked facets of all of them. And, line managers, I've had great line managers in all of them. and learned different things at different points in my career that were very valid. So I don't look back and think, oh, there was a business I wish I didn't go in, and and it was a bad business, and this was there was a bad manager. I look at all the positives. Actually, this business was very good for X, Y, and Z, and this manager I had was good for X, Y, and Z as well. So I think it's just being grown up in yourself to realise what you want and when you want it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Sadly, a lot of people don't get that, but it's like I say when I think something that's really sad sometimes when somebody leaves who's good, but in some businesses they're naturally the senior manager are just negative about that individual and go, oh yeah, well they weren't good enough, and it's like, but the rest of the staff know they were good enough, they were brilliant, and that's just sad. When companies do that.
That to me, that's a human reaction. Yeah. So I think when you lose a good person, your probably first human response is, oh, that causes me a problem in my own business. Profitability, managing a team. I really relied on that business. Yeah. That's your first instinct. So you're already on a slight feeling sad, let's call it, or negative feeling. Yeah. And then I think any business will do it, is you have to deflect. It's a human nature, and that's why you need to say is, well, if they've left and they were good, the next question that everyone's going to say, well, it must be this. So most people then will go, well, it's because they actually weren't very good, and try to reflect it back on them. There's that. And I think, look, another one as well, as a consultant, you're not always going to get everything right. And there are speed bumps. So any client will tell you they've had a cost plan that might have been slightly wrong, or they had a bit of information that wasn't as great as it should be. And if someone leaves, the immediate easy response to not have to face into that conversation is to go, Bill, Bob, Dave, Sarah did it, and now they're gone. We've got a new person that's more shiny than them. And I would, if I was the person leaving, don't feel too sad. That's just a human reaction, and it will pass. It will pass. But that's what you find. That's what you find.
You need to write a book on philosophy, Frank.
I don't know about that. Probably spinning a yarn. No, but yeah, I suppose that I've had many years in the game and time to reflect on certain things. And hindsight is a wonderful thing. I think the other thing you start to think about is you got to remember where you were and who you were talking to at a point in time. So, it sounds weird. I find myself falling into the shoes of some of the people that I was talking to. Right. And I'd be like, when I was younger, I'd be like, I don't agree with this person's opinion. They're like really bad. I don't know why they're saying it. And then you reflect on it and go, I'm actually that person saying these things, and there is a reason for it that I couldn't see then. So I think hindsight and reflection, when you're a maturing person, I think I'm actually older than you, Paul. You tend to do, and you start to see things from a different angle.
Yeah, and that sometimes only comes from life experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't, something like you can't teach, can you? At the end of the day, and as we all get older, I think we hopefully all do get a bit more mellow in some ways. Not everybody does, but I think a lot of us do get more mellow, because you like you say, you can look back at past experience and go, I see now why that individual chose to do that at that time. And I guess the way to think about it is just you've got to maybe not take everything personally.
Agreed.
Because you maybe don't know, you maybe don't have the full picture of why a decision was made, and sometimes it might have been a wrong decision, or it might have been the right decision, but you might not have all the details to know it was the right decision.
And let's be honest, like, no one's infallible. So that manager may have made a decision. It may not have been the right decision at the time, but they may have reflected on it and thought it was bad later. But, there is a human aspect, especially to consultancy. I mean, all consultancy firms, which are architects and all that, we're people businesses. We don't make anything. We don't produce anything. We have peoples that manage things, and we manage relationships within that. And look, even with marriages, everything has to be worked upon, and people change, and it's understanding when things change and how to address that, that keeps things positive and hopefully moving forward.
Yeah, brilliant.
Most of the time.
That probably brings us nicely on to one of the kind of usually one of the last questions I ask, Frank. in your time, who has been, would you say, has been your best boss or mentor, or someone you've learned from?
Do you know what? I'm going to give you a long answer on this, but I think it ties back into what we're saying on the journey. So I think that when I was at Gardner and Theobald, my first serious line manager, because when you're young you have a few, but my first one that I spent time with was a chap called Martin Harlin, and he was what I called an old school QS. And actually what I learned from Martin was measuring on dim paper, looking for everything. He got my technical skills great. So I think when I look back, Martin was great for that. Yeah. I then same in God. I'm sorry, it's a bit of a long answer.
No, it's fine.
I then did work with a guy called Alistair Walsonome within Gardner and Theobald, and he showed me how to be a wider cost manager. So like how to manage the relationships with clients, look at the bigger picture. And I think what, Alistair Walsonome to this day, if you're listening, Alistair, still technically probably one of the best commercial managers, quantity surveyors you'll ever come across.
Right.
Coming out of that, when I went to Potter Raper, I met Joe Parker. Joe Parker told me more about people management, client management, in the sense of, it's more than just work, it's about relationships. And that was a very good learning curve to me then. I then went Turner and Townsend, loved Steve Woodward, perseverance. Steve Woodward is a man with a bit between his teeth. If you give him a task, he'll keep going to the end, and I think that was good. And then, going to E.C. Harris Cast, because that's, they're the same group of people we're working with. I think there was two people there. I think Joe Thornton, again, he's probably one of the best cost consultants, stroke PM consultants you'll ever come across. So Joe Thornton told me showed me how to strategically think and think wider picture, managing people business. And also, I would say, with hindsight, looking back at it, Keith Brooks, right. As someone who can guide a ship, positive things about Keith Brooks. They were good people to learn from at points in time. So I think I've had good people along the journey, but not for one specific reason. They were what I needed at a point in time at each step. And, if you stay with them too long, they wouldn't have possibly been great. But at the point when I needed them, they were great at each point. So
love that.
That's my answer.
No, I love that. That's an amazing answer. One thing that I think worries me a little bit at the moment in the world, or but let's say in the consultancy world, I wonder whether there's going to be as many people who, not through lack of wanting to, but don't have the time to be good mentors now. I feel that maybe when you grew up, you maybe had the time or patience of people to give you that mentorship. And I think it's something, as a business owner, you've got to be a steward for, in terms of making sure that you give that time to people who develop. I worry that's one of the things that a lot of young QSs, PMs, whatever, are maybe not. Their seniors don't have enough time to really mentor them, which I think is a worry for me in the industry.
I think that's a valid point, and interestingly, we talked about it as a business ourselves. That I think when I was younger, it was more prevalent that people would give a bit more time to the group, and I think what it boils down to is back to our earlier point about titles and timing. So when I go back and think about when I entered the industry in the late 90s, your expectation to be a director wouldn't be within 2-3 years. No. You'd be like 10, 15.
Yeah.
And I think the expectations of the business is you will be very good at delivery here, and this guy will teach you and pull you up. But in the modern world, we seem to want to move faster.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that we're getting benefits from that. So maybe the key is putting remuneration to one side, because that's most people drivers. As an industry, we need to take a step back and go, we do need to give back. We do need to slow things down. We do need to get to points. And maybe one of them is it's like a social contract. Our expectation of this level is this, and let's be real about what that is and what that person gets called. And there probably needs to be a slight more consensus across businesses about our expectations around that. I don't know how to implement that, but I think there needs to be that step change to think this is our expectations. And actually, part of that journey is to give back a bit.
100%. think we've suffered from kind of chronic over-promotion in the industry as a retention tool. And you push your people into roles that they're not ready for, and the industry's suffering because of it, I think.
Yeah, I also think as well is if we're all called the same, how do you differentiate? And look, it's no different to school grades. So, like when we were kids, you had ABC, and then you had A star ABC. Now we've got to 9 because they can't do A star star. We can keep calling things different names, but what does it actually mean? Are we going to have a title beyond director? And I think it's a case of take a step back. What are you getting? What are you called? What does it mean in the grand scheme of things? I mean, sometimes the title director there is a lot of responsibility and expectations around that. Ask yourselves, are you ready? If you are, then have the conversation. But there's a bit of that.
Amazing.
Good stuff.
Frank, that's been an amazing conversation. Thank you.
That's it. I want to do one of the pint pictures. We should do this. I know it's a different post, but...
No, that's been amazing. Thank you. I think a lot of people will get a lot out of that. And what you've been really, I think, good with is just talking about people's expectations about their career journey. Because I think a lot of people are just want to be on this treadmill, and it's like, just slow down.
That's it. You'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.